Welcome to Building Innovation, the podcast, convening experts to discuss issues and solutions.
Hey, welcome everybody to Building Innovation, the podcast. Each episode, we convene subject matter experts and support advances in the building science and technology environment. I'm your host, Johnny Fortune, and I'm so pleased today to be joined by my colleague, TJ Meehan. TJ, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So this is very exciting. I've been looking forward to this opportunity to interview you because you've done so much work in this space. For those that, and I know you're well known and respected in the industry, but for those that don't know, why don't you please tell us a little something about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I currently work for a company called CADD Microsystems. I'm their vice president of technology solutions. I started my career as an architect. I still have my architectural license. I practiced architecture for 6 or 7 years, but for the last little over 20 years, I've been working as a technology consultant. So CADD Microsystems is a platinum partner with Autodesk and with other companies like Bluebeam and FM Systems. And so we help implement those technologies in the design, build, operate sector. So I lead a team of other ex-architects, engineers, facility managers, contractors, and we go around and help businesses kind of change their process, develop workflows, implement these technologies, train them on it, build all the standards and templates that they need, help them roll it out, do some of the change management to make them successful.
Oh, that's great. I mean, that's a lot, and you're very, very deeply entrenched in some heavy activity. I'm just curious. I always like to ask people this. What motivates you in your day-to-day work? What is it that gets you out of bed in the morning that really excites you?
The past couple of years, it's been all about building owners. I've been so entrenched with architects and engineers for so long, and then started to get heavy into contractors. But I love now helping building owners realize how they can be more successful with BIM workflows, with BIM technologies, with good data, and make them more successful.
So you've done a lot of work with NBIMS, which we're very thankful and appreciative of, especially around the National BIM Standard version 4. There is a COBie module. And just to go back a little bit, in the history, and you've given us some already, but any other things that really led you to get involved in this industry to start with, and then if you'd like, you can just kind of continue on to your work as the lead for the COBie work group for NBIMS version 4.
Sure. It started a while ago, back in 2011. Autodesk approached me and said, the software we build is so focused on architects and engineers, we're missing a whole industry of building owners. Autodesk is a huge company. They have tons of product development teams, but they have long-term roadmaps, and they follow those roadmaps. And so Autodesk said, can your team, who's, to quote, high-speed, low-drag, can you guys go and build some add-ins for Revit at the time that will help building owners utilize data from Revit better? And that's where the COBie extension started. So we actually, the first product we made was a model checker directly for the Army Corps of Engineers that would just check Revit models. Now that's of course open to everybody, and then we built the COBie extension back in 2014, and we competed in that kind of COBie competition with other vendors that created COBie. So I got a crash course in COBie. I had to learn what COBie was. I had to understand the COBie standard. I spent a lot of time with Bill East. I spent a lot of time with some data counterparts I have at Autodesk, and just became immersed in COBie. So then 2015, I was asked to join what was then the COBie task group at NBIMS. And starting in 2015, we started working on the next version of COBie 3.0. That was, 9 years ago almost.
Oh, wow.
And that work group moved forward for about 18 months. And then the leaders of the group had to leave. They were no longer available.
Mm.
And then there were some structural changes. So effectively, there was a 3-year hiatus with COBie development. So back in April of 2020, 4 years ago now, NBIMS reached out to me, reached out to Brian Haynes over at FM Systems and said, will you guys take this back up and work forward in it? And so 3.5 years later, we published COBie 3.0 as part of NBIMS 4.0.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, obviously that was not an easy lift. You mentioned the years. I have a lot of conversations with folks about standards for the built environment, and one, it is often just easily rolls off the tongue to say, well, we just need a standard for this. Well, why don't we have a standard in place, and let's get a standard in place. But what you've just shared with us is a reminder that standards are often a long process. It takes a lot of involvement, especially if they're consensus based. You have have to work through a lot of sometimes terminology debates and really get to an agreement from the group, and then it has to go out for the public to respond to it.
It's so true. I mean, when you take 30 plus volunteers and to try and talk through every potential change and do that over time, and then get consensus from the other groups and then from the public, and then write it and publish it, it takes 3.5 years.
Yeah,
that's what we found.
Wow. And COBie, the latest version of COBie is a very important part of the National BIM Standard version 4, and it is one of the main modules. And what I found in my discussions with folks about NBIMS, you kind of have two groups. People either love COBie or they hate COBie. It just depends on kind of which area they're in. But yeah, it is one of the most referenced pieces of the National BIM Standard. And again, thank you to you and your group. And you had an interesting group, because when we were putting it ready for publication, you had the work group that was the lead, and you had contributors, and then you kind of have another group of people that provided feedback and helped with the refinement. It was probably the largest overall group of participation on any of the modules for NBIMS version 4. And that speaks to the rigor that it went through to develop it. But it also speaks to how it is definitely a consensus-based standard.
Well, one of the things that was really actually good about the 3-year hiatus with this group from 2017 to 2020 is that back in 2015, 16, 17, a lot of people knew about COBie, but very few people had actually implemented it and done it on a project. That 3-year hiatus changed things. So when we reconvened as a group, and that group is largely the same as what it was before, just missing that initial leadership, we had people who had used COBie on actual projects and had fundamental feedback on how it could improve.
Yeah.
And to your point, COBie had become a bad word in the industry because the contractors or the consultants who were asked to deliver COBie were asked to deliver all of COBie and so much, and they weren't used to it, and they just saw it as an additional burden on what they were already trying to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so, over the years, having software that generates COBie right out of Revit files, and then COBie V3 simplifying it and making it easier to deliver it, hopefully is going to turn the tide on that.
Yeah.
Every owner needs a data deliverable, period.
Yeah.
At the end, at handover, they need a data deliverable. That data can be stuck in the model, or it could be separated out of the model in a COBie format or whatever format they want. COBie just gives them a starting point if they want to do it.
So just to take one step back, I just thought that some of our audience may not know what COBie is, and for those who are listening on an audio only version of this podcast, the COBie is an acronym. You want to tell us just some really brief history and what COBie is about, for a brief synopsis for those that just are not familiar with it?
Sure. So COBie is a data standard. It stands for Construction to Operations Building Information Exchange. It's a long acronym. If you Google it, you'll get the actress from How I Met Your Mother. But COBie itself began in 2007 with the Army Corps of Engineers. They knew they needed a data deliverable standard. So no matter what software is being used to work in a BIM process, to build these models and collect the data in the BIM process, you should be able to extract that data to a standardized format so that it can be ingested by whatever asset management system you have. So COBie is focused on the manageable or maintainable assets in a facility. So your bigger pieces of equipment, essentially.
Yeah.
And so the problem COBie solves is at handover, the contractor will hand you the keys and then wheel in boxes of documents, all the drawings and specs and owner's manuals and O&M manuals and warranty information. All of that comes in just printed out documents in all of these bankers' boxes. And so COBie says, well, instead of doing that, why don't you gather all that documentation digitally and hand it to us in one nice file? And it's a step format, which is a database file, but most people deliver it in Excel.
Interesting. No, that's a great synopsis. And I think one of the key things that I heard from you as you began talking about COBie was one of the implementation challenges. If somebody said, okay, we have, asking the owner, what do you want? And the owner, the typical answer right off the bat is, well, we want everything. Well, everything's expensive. Yes. And to capture and document. And I do think you're right. This next version of COBie and more education about this is a format that you can use, but it doesn't necessarily mean that a particular owner wants all of this. There's certain pieces that they want.
Right.
So you've also done some work in owner data needs, and I mean it's funny because we both have participated on the USACE Industry BIM consortia at times, and so I keep hearing your name come up through different owners, different industry events, and obviously COBie and the work you guys did for Army Corps on their model checker.
Sure.
So you're also heavily involved in helping meet owners' needs from a data perspective. Can you talk some about that? What you do and what kind of difference do you feel like that's making for them, and maybe some of the discussions you have with owners about how to get down to what an owner really needs?
Yeah, so a lot of what me and my team does right now is essentially be an owner representative. So when an owner wants a BIM process followed, sometimes what they do is they turn to their architects and contractor to say, all right, help me through this process. And that's fine, but often the architect and the contractor lack the long-term vision of what it takes to operate a facility. So they'll write a BIM execution plan that does a very nice job during design and construction and maybe even handover. But then after handover, what do you do? And how do you standardize all of that through the very beginning so that the data that gets input by different people at different times in different ways all matches a standard and is consistent so that it can be delivered? So we spend a lot of time educating owners on what BIM is and what they want out of BIM and why, helping them develop short and long-term strategies. I want to use BIM right now just to reduce the clashes and interferences during design and construction, right? Maybe that's my low-term goal. Or I want to use BIM right now to have a very low-resolution model of every building on my campus so that I can understand the square footages and track that. Or I want BIM to manage my assets only. That's all I care about. So helping owners better understand what they want out of BIM and then helping them define and document their standards. And often what we create are legal documents that they will put in their contracts with their consultants.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah. And I think you've hit on something there that I've had several conversations around. I think you articulated it very well. That yes, I mean, the architect, engineer, and construction, they heavily focus on the design and the construction piece. But yeah, from an owner perspective, they're thinking about a lot more about the life cycle of this building, not just from a material standpoint and, the longevity of the building. But they are thinking about, especially more these days, what data do they need and how can they use that data? Mm-hmm. And so their perspective is interesting. And I love the approach of, a third party consultant providing this service to owners, because you really come into it with no particular stakeholder bias, other than you're just trying to help the owner meet their long-term goals. That's fantastic. I would encourage every owner to, to have some kind of consultant like that, or an advisor that could help them, think beyond the construction phase, the design phase, and the construction phase.
90% of the cost of ownership of a building over its life cycle is operations.
Yeah.
Design and construction are only 10% of that building. So it's very important that owners have the tools they need to operate that facility.
And the benefit of that, of the role that you play also for the AECs, is also that it's not they're not working with an owner who is not knowledgeable about, well, don't just ask for everything. You identify the things that you really need, because there's always a cost associated with, capturing that, or, mapping that, or migrating it over into another system. There's typically some cost associated with it. So the AECs, that it's a benefit to them, because they no longer have just a blanket statement that's obscure and hard to understand exactly what they need to deliver. It provides a lot of clarity for all the stakeholders.
It's so true. The architects, engineers, and contractors don't just want to keep having change orders or adding all this contingency to handle ambiguity in owners' requests. And so we help them be clear with it.
So you mentioned a couple of tools, and I've actually used these tools. This is what's so exciting. I've used these tools, I think, before I met you. But yeah, definitely use the model checker, and that had knowledge of it through USACE, but then also when it became publicly available. That was a great tool, and you led the development of those tools, right?
Yeah, I've been the product owner / product manager / UI designer / QA / BA.
Oh my gosh!
We're a very small team, of only less than 6 people that have been developing those tools over the years, and so we wear a lot of hats. So Autodesk, needs a team like ours that can very quickly turn things around.
Yeah.
And to date now, the what are now called the Autodesk interoperability tools, used to be called the BIM interoperability tools. So the Autodesk interoperability tools, the Revit ones have more than 2 million installations worldwide. There's now one for Civil 3D, the standardized data tool for Civil 3D. And we continue to develop these tools that help the architects, engineers, and owners get the data they need throughout that process.
And I remember I don't remember which tool it was, and maybe it was the COBie extension. But I do remember that there was one that it was an add-on install. You had to, at one time you had to go to a different place to download it and then install it as an add-in. But it gained so much momentum. It's so well developed. It became part of that as the software package was delivered. It became part of that was readily available as part of the install of the software. Mm-hmm. It's got to be very rewarding for you personally. That has had a huge impact. And I've used both of those tools. They're fantastic. And many of my colleagues have as well. But, there has to be a great sense of accomplishment that it had such a reach and has been so successful.
Yeah, it's very gratifying to look at that and to, have people tell me that they've been using those tools and they see those tools. And, our name is not on those tools. Autodesk's name is on those tools. Yeah. But we're the ones who've designed, built, and operated those tools from their inception.
So the COBie extension, and that specifically goes to, I believe, works with the Autodesk Revit, right? And so just for our audience's sake, what does that extension do? How does it help streamline some of that?
It's actually pretty simple. COBie is a collection of data fields, right, organized into tables. So there's a component table, a type table, a space table, a floor table. So those data fields in each of those tables translate directly to parameters in Revit. So the COBie extension adds the parameters, attaches them to the right categories in Revit. And so as the teams are working along, developing those models, they can add the data at the right time in the right place. And then at the end, you can simply say, export all of those, and it creates a COBie formatted Excel spreadsheet with the data from those parameters.
That's incredible. I know firsthand that is a time saver. So to circle back to COBie, we talked about the involvement with the owner data needs and the software development. I want to kind of come back to version 3 of COBie, which is a part of version 4 of NBIMS. No confusion there, but yes, is this third iteration of COBie. Just if you can, for our audience, like what were some of the main things that you felt the group that you led felt like, well, we need to change this or we need to update it, and what was some of the why behind those?
So I alluded to them earlier. One of the big things was to make it easier to use. So we actually, what I will call, trim the fat on COBie, and we took out tables that weren't being used. We took out data fields that really weren't being used or that were hard to use. We created a nice, what we call our title block summary on the first page to know this COBie deliverable means this for this project to make it easier. We modernized it a little bit. We used some new terminology. We removed personally identifiable information fields. The whole, created by and created on are gone because they really weren't serving a purpose. We added some more capabilities. So we added this kind of part of capability so that it's easy to identify when assets have relationships to other assets. And then we included some workflows that are specific to facility handover. And I don't mean handover from design and construction. I mean handover from one owner to another owner. Oh, so that they can begin to manage that facility day one as well. So the package, event, risk, there were some new tables added to help with that.
Very good, and it's exciting. It's a wonderful part of the National BIM Standard version 4. And for those that are tuning into this episode via our YouTube channel, the video component will place in there a QR code so that you can go and visit the site. For those who are listen only, we have you can go to our site, nibs.org/NBIMS, NBIMS, and that'll take you to the latest version of the National BIM Standard. We'll also have plenty of links on social media where you can go and check out the latest version of the National BIM Standard. But so thank you to you guys, and a lot of the development that you did for the latest version of COBie was really as a volunteer in these work groups. These work groups are made of subject matter experts from around the world, especially for COBie, because it does have adoption not only here in the U.S., but it has adoption abroad. So you worked with some international folks as well, right? You got some international feedback and.
Yeah, it's a really good point. The UK government has made COBie a standard for all federal buildings. The United States does not have COBie as a standard for any type of construction. Now, the Army Corps requires COBie, and other owners who are big owners require COBie. But there's not a U.S. standard. So the UK has been using COBie when they published their ISO 19650 standard, the BIM Level 2 standard, so that COBie has been used as part of that standard for years now. So we had Nick Nesbitt, who is a longtime consultant, BIM consultant in the UK, on our team to help us give that perspective throughout. So even though COBie is a U.S. standard, we recognize that it is used abroad, and we wanted to make sure we were hearing that voice when we updated it for V3.
Again, it's got to be incredibly gratifying to that you've helped develop something that has really that reach. It's incredible.
Yes, yeah, exciting. So we haven't seen a lot of adoption with COBie V3 yet. It's still fairly new. Just October it was released, but I foresee that accelerating and that adoption accelerating.
So I think that officially elevates you to superhero level with with the reach of these tools, the work you're doing with the data for owners, building owners, and then your work on COBie. It's really quite an incredible resume of work that you've done. So I'd like to kind of shift a little bit now and just ask you about, what you think are some of the more pressing challenges that we're facing now we've had a lot of challenges, and I think that the AECO has come a long way in terms of, technology advancement. It's certainly changed dramatically. But what do you feel like are some of the top of list challenges that we really still need to address?
Yeah, so we talked about one earlier, which is just many building owners don't know what they want exactly. They don't understand what they can get, why they need it, and how it's going to benefit them, and they ask for everything just because they can. And of course, that frustrates their consultants and makes it difficult. So there's an education challenge in there, right? We've had not just our industry, but every industry for since the beginning of time, a challenge with managing change. People don't want to change. They like to do things the way they've been doing it.
Yeah.
So switching from a traditional 2D workflow to a BIM workflow is challenging. And, that's been happening for a couple decades now. And it's still not, fully mainstream, I would say. So there's that challenge.
Yeah.
The technology continues to get better, but it is still lacking a little bit.
Okay.
If we think about digital twins are probably the top emerging technology right now when it comes to building owners. There's very few software that can handle large buildings, large data sets. So that still needs to move forward. But the connections between these digital twin platforms, and some are very good, by the way, and the systems that owners use to operate their facilities, whether it's space management or asset management or room reservations and hoteling or things like that, those digital twin systems are being built with the ability to talk to those systems in some way or another. You still need somebody like me to help them, get in the same room and translate, but that is accelerating. So even though it's still a challenge right now, there's going to be a tipping point soon where it'll be easy with no code or low code solutions to say, let me stand up this digital twin and connect it to my asset management system and have them talk back and forth to each other.
So I love that perspective because it's based in reality in what you're seeing, especially when you talk about digital twins. A lot of times when I hear talk about digital twins, it's still a very nebulous idea, and it's not as tangible. It's kind of hard to get the takeaway, but that is an excellent example of how that really begins to tie in that using the digital twin to help inform owners, which is fantastic. And to your point, and there are a lot of great AI tools and advanced technology that are out there. Many people are exploring them, but on some level, yes, you still need an expert that understands how the data is managed, how it flows, and data interoperability, preventing data degradation and poisoning and leaking, and there's a cybersecurity component in there as well. So I'm just curious what your take. To me, it always feels like that there's a little bit of a you've got the cybersecurity, data security that you always have to be mindful of, and then you got the innovation, and sometimes those compete against each other. I'm just curious what your take is, like the cybersecurity component. I know you guys think about that, but you're also always working on innovation. How's that tug of war going?
It's not going well, to be honest. It's a constant battle, depending on the client, and it's not just federal government clients. It's commercial clients. We're working with a very large banking institution, worldwide banking institution, and they have tremendous security requirements.
Sure.
And it's very difficult, even down to where they won't allow us to put anything on an Azure platform. It has to be on an AWS platform or vice versa. And that can be challenging because some of these tools were built on one or the other, and you're building integrations back and forth. So there's a lot of issues when it comes to that. And, I'm not a coder. I don't know, DevOps very well. So I'm trying to learn this stuff, and I just have to surround myself with smarter people for that.
Yeah. And it continues to grow. So you can there's always something else you need to learn.
Constantly changing.
Yeah. So maybe I may start calling that innovation within the box, because that's really how it has to happen, right? You do have your parameters of security, but you're still trying to innovate. Yeah. So there are those boundaries you have to work within. So that's, a fantastic perspective. I always feel smarter after I have a talk with you, TJ. It's absolutely wonderful. Like to throw out this bonus question. Love to do this with all of our guests. We have fun with it, and the answers just range from fun fact to funny story to something very serious or something very important. But would love for you to share with our audience something interesting, fun fact, or information about you that our audience wouldn't find on a LinkedIn post or profile or CV. So what would you like to share with us today?
So you asked me about this morning, and I was thinking about it, and I was thinking of a story that really speaks to this idea of people don't want to change, and BIM is hard to implement, and at least for some people. And so there's a story that I was working with an architecture firm, and I can make fun of architects, being an architect myself, so I'm going to. We were helping them transition from a 2D AutoCAD environment to moving to using Revit and doing a BIM workflow and modeling and doing all of that. So this is, a decade ago, but it just spoke to the perspective of they don't want to change. So we were sitting down talking about something very detailed, like the title mark on a set of construction documents, right?
Yeah.
The bubble with the line, it gives the title of the drawing you see above it. Maybe it's a plan, a section, elevation, whatever. And the bubble has a number in it. Well, their set of construction documents always had that bubble on the right side of the line and not the left side of the line. And back then, Revit couldn't automate that. The beauty of Revit is I put that bubble in, I put a number, it automatically references. If I change the sheet number, it updates the bubbles. If I change the scale, it updates the title mark and puts the right scale in it. You don't have to coordinate that anymore in Revit. But they were so adamant about having the bubble on the right, about that being their brand, that they got rid of the intelligent bubbles and put in dummy ones and made sure people would continue to go back and coordinate manually across the thing. And I've never really gotten in a shouting match with a client of mine, but that was the closest I've ever come to help them try and realize why they would not want to do that.
Oh, wow. I feel your pain because I remember many discussions about north arrows. Getting people to standardize on north arrows for drawings is one of the most challenging things in my career. So that is fantastic. What's next for you, TJ?
So continue fighting the fight, I guess, right? Helping these owners better understand what they need, helping them get standards in place, helping them work with their consultants to get better and more strategic data for them. But on the flip side, also, approaching it from the software side, helping develop more software to help it be easier to implement these changes.
Very good. So to recap for our audience, some things that really stood out to me, and I'm sure there's more, but COBie version 3, long time in development, huge consensus from a large group to develop this latest version. It's part of the National BIM Standard version 4. You can check that out on our website. You can check the notes for the episode with a link. Just fantastic work on COBie. Very broad, far-reaching. We also talked a little about owner data needs. One of the things that stuck out to me about that was really the need for a specialist, a consultant that can help bring in a new perspective and help the owner identify their data strategy, what information is needed, help communicate that to the team. That not only benefits the owner, but it benefits the rest of the AEC team as well.
Yeah, I would add to that, even though we are typically the owner's representative, we're also working directly with their consultants to make the consultant's life easier.
Yeah.
Right? Because instead of the consultants hearing, give me everything, now the consultants see, they're helping me get specific things and giving me tools and techniques to be able to deliver that to the owner easily.
It's kind of like a data translator, right? You're translating the data needs and requirements between multiple parties and helping everybody make sense of it. And you do a fantastic job of that because you're obviously very intelligent. You worked in the technical realm very long, but you have a great way of communicating technical topics in a way that we can all understand it. And thank you for your work in the industry over the years. It's really made a difference. The broad adoption of these tools and standards really is a testament to your hard work, your commitment, and then also your ability to lead, to pull together a lot of subject matter experts and get the work done. So thank you for your contribution to NBIMS, National BIM Standard version 4, and your contribution to the nation and the globe as these tools are so far reaching. You have any additional comments you want to share with us?
Well, I just want to thank you very much. It's been a joy to be a part of NBIMS and volunteer for this and work with all of these industry experts so that I can learn from them. So I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to more in the future.
Well, we're very honored to have you today. I want to thank our audience for tuning in to Building Innovation, the podcast. Special thanks to TJ Meehan for joining us and sharing his expertise, depth, and wealth of knowledge. And just a reminder to our audience, you can subscribe to Building Innovation, the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on many different channels. Please be sure to check out our NBIMS YouTube channel for the video version. Subscribe, like, share, help us get the word out about what's happening in the built environment. This is great information. We want to share it with everyone. So thank you. Please help us spread the word. Reach out to us. Give us some feedback, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Building Innovation, the podcast, the official podcast of the National Institute of Building Sciences. For more information, visit our website at nibs.org.